Welcome to this edition of Thought to Action, presented by the Herb London Center for Policy Research. I'm Chris Cordani. In Congress, they are once again debating on more gun control laws. You heard what President Joe Biden has been saying for weeks, well, let alone months, since he's run for president. No rights are absolute. That includes the Second Amendment. Especially the Second Amendment is what we're hearing from him and his cohorts in Washington. Gun control, gun control, gun control. That seems to be the big cry, aside from 1-6, in recent weeks. I know it's a distraction from other issues, but even some Republican senators are moving in on this. The big question is the red flag laws. We're going to talk about that today with our panel, but we're also going to talk about a little bit a more honest conversation about what they really could mean in the future, how subject they are to abuses, and what politicians may be able to do and perhaps want to do with these red flag laws in the future. With me to discuss all of this, our president of the Herb London Center for Policy Research, Tony Schaefer, senior fellow Jay Homnick, and distinguished fellow Pete O'Brien. Before we start, though, if you like what you watch here and you want to keep following us, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel, our YouTube channel or Rumble channel, wherever you're watching or hearing us, because that would really help us out. Also, please share this video if you really like it with your friends and colleagues and your social networks. That would really help us out as well. Also, join our Patreon page, patreon.com/thought to action. We'll have some exclusive content, including our cool Ask Us Anything sessions. Tony, the red flag laws are out, or at least they're being discussed. This might seem reasonable to a lot of people because we don't want guns in the hands of people who are really mentally ill and could cause some serious damage. However, there are many deeper issues to this.
Let's frame it in the proper context then, Chris. There are issues that go beyond any law that Congress will never be able to fix. Fundamentally, you will never fix evil. Evil is something that's been a part of civilization since its beginning. And you're simply not going to be able to legislate any solution to those who wish to cause harm to others, be it with knives, guns, cars. So I think the fundamental idea that somehow you're going to legislate goodness and stop badness is flawed and insane. Just let's start with that. Are there laws that can help? Absolutely. I think there's guidelines which can be presented. I'm pretty much a very close to a Second Amendment purist. I do believe the founding fathers meant no restrictions on firearms. I do believe that. I still believe that. And these red flag laws are flawed for two fundamental reasons. First, it presumes that you're going to commit a crime, future crime. That's not legal, nor is it logical. And the idea that somehow you're going to prevent somebody from committing a crime is that concept itself is illegal. It's unconstitutional. Secondly, the presumption of the red flag law is that somehow you're going to take something from someone who is deeply, probably either criminally insane or mentally unstable to the point of where he or she could harm herself, himself, or others. And again, those sorts of laws already exist. If you are worried about someone, you can have them essentially placed by law under observation. So if you can already do that, why do you want a red flag law? I mean, anybody who's exhibiting extreme psychosis can be the habeas corpus can be put on them. Just saying. And everything I've read about these recent cases, there were indicators, especially in the New York case, that, hey, there's something really wrong here. Maybe this person shouldn't have firearms, and there should have been local examination of this issue. So I am not for red flag laws because I think the fundamental issues they're trying to prevent are not preventable. And those issues that could be at least managed and mitigated, those laws and regulations are already available. So it's redundant and stupid. And that's the way I'm looking at it. So people may take my position as extreme, but there you have it.
The gun organizations themselves, several of them are in favor of the red flag laws because they think that'll protect their gun rights. That if they say, hey, let's just have a red flag law, And when a guy's, being wacky, take his gun away. And that way it protects everyone else and they're not going to make some crazy new restrictions. So I'm just putting that out there, that some of the backers of the red flag was actually pro Second Amendment people.
And I think that's insane because they fundamentally don't understand that if they're supporting that, then they don't support the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is all about personal protection, the right to bear arms. They didn't say guns, Jay. They didn't say knives. They said bear arms, whatever those arms are. Those arms are whatever they need to be. And the idea that some pro Second Amendment group would say, yeah, we don't really care about an individual's right if someone deems it necessary. And that's the issue. Who deems the red flag issue? Who judges if it's proper or not? The state. The state getting into being able to judge with very little due process, if any, what the rights of an individual are relating to his or her continuing to have firearms is very dangerous. It's not American, it's unconstitutional. And I think that's one of the things I'm most against. While I gave you my policy and philosophical framework, the other element of this, which you kind of allude to, Jay, is this puts a lot of power in the state, even though these guys, oh yeah, no big deal. It's a huge deal because I don't want any state organization or federal organization being able to say on a whim, potentially, even without any regard to facts, that this person is dangerous. And my belief is they're going to move this from a practical, like this person's crazy, to this person has views that are politically incongruent with my views, and I'm going to use this red flag law to go after political enemies, as we saw in the Russian collusion narrative and the FBI. So.
This is something that we really need to bring up. And Pete, I wanted to hear what you have to say about this, because we're now, or at least Congress members, even the Republicans who are trying to move in on this one and say this is going to be a great bipartisan deal, are looking at putting these powers in the hands of the same government that has been using the IRS over the years for as a political weapon, has been using the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security to suppress speech on the internet and other places. This is a problem. This is too much power at the hands of one very small group of people, Pete.
I completely agree. And I'll go back to start with something you said right at the very beginning. You used the term mentally ill. And I would ask our viewership to define mentally ill. Because what you'll find is that is a moving definition. And I would, if you don't agree with how radically that can move, consider that just a few years ago, the official American Medical Association and the board of I forget what the term of art is, what the name of the association is, but the folks who define psychological terms. A few years ago, and for the preceding 200 years of their existence, or 150 years, the psychologists of the United States and Europe defined virtually every single odd or unusual or different sexual behavior as a sign of serious mental problems. And now those are all defined as normal. What they will be defined as in 5 years, God alone knows. No one knows the future. But to simply say that someone is mentally ill is a tremendous factual challenge, and it can be easily twisted. And I'll use an example that I've heard from several people. It actually happened to someone I know, going through an ugly divorce, and his wife accused him legally of being crazy and a danger to her, and legal action was taken against him. And it took quite a while to unravel that. It took multiple years to unravel that, and it was based upon a single accusation by someone who was very angry at him. So
and that's without a red flag law.
I'm sorry.
That's without a red flag.
And that's without a red flag law. Exactly right. And so the idea that I can have the legislature pass a law, words on a page, that says if you're deemed a danger to yourself as determined by the courts, and the courts somehow have some otherworldly insight into what is actually pinging around inside your brain, and they can determine that you are a danger to yourself, the court can then come in and start doing things, seize your weapons, perhaps put you under observation, perhaps lock you up. This is a very dangerous thing. This is a risk to society as a whole. And I would go back to people who would say, well, we need to do something to stop the crimes. And my answer is, you need to go back and look at a philosophical precept that has ruled really the Western world for the last 3,000 or 4,000 years, and that is that it is better that and basically something I think it was by Voltaire, but I don't hold me to that. Is that it's better that 100 guilty men go free than one innocent man go to prison, and that is a cornerstone of our entire Western judicial system. And if you take that away, you place the entire social system of the West at grave risk.
Now, I just to augment your point, I forget the name of the lady. She wrote a book and she works with Mr. Lott. Her name is Nikki Groner or something like that.
Nikki Gosher, yes.
Yeah, Gosher. So she was going through a divorce, and in the process of it, she had a little bit of depression, and she was going to go in to, Baker Act herself for 3 days or something for observation, something like that, and they wonder that's going to make you lose your gun. So she had to, stay home and self-medicate and work her way through it because she wasn't going to take a chance with the ex-husband being a scary guy and all that. She needed the gun. So she had to gamble and give up the counseling.
And keep in mind, and again, maybe a slightly different subject, but her later boyfriend was murdered by the ex in a
Right.
no-gun zone, a known no-gun zone. So,
And she had a gun, but she left it in the car.
because she had to, a no-gun zone. These criminals know exactly where to go. We've talked about this in a past video. We're probably going to be talking about this a lot more. I want to throw another real world situation again at you gentlemen. Tony, first, we have also discussed that Google, a very powerful tech entity, had a situation with the whistleblower. I believe Voorhees was his last name.
Yeah.
They red flagged Voorhees, saying he was suicidal, mentally ill, if you will, to make sure that, let's put it this way, the powers that be keep an eye on him. This is another potential abuse of red flag laws. Certain very powerful employers, and I'm talking about the big tech types or the huge companies like GE, media companies, will be able to say, oh no, this person's crazy, if they want to come up and maybe blow the whistle, throw some dissent out there, or at least maybe, or just say maybe there was a bad relationship between management and that person, and the termination was not exactly optimal or mutually acceptable. We'll put it that way. The fact is, the powerful entity can not only blacklist the person to get rid of, but red flag that person.
Right. And we're still more scared of governments doing that than of corporations doing it.
Well, it's all the same in my thinking, Jay, because this has been going on long before red flag laws or all this other stuff came up. Pete, I think, already knows a little bit about this. So when I was whistleblowing on something called Able Danger, I had no idea I was a whistleblower because before I was a whistleblower, I had reported to the 9/11 Commission about the existence of this black operation and what we had done. And they went after my clearance before I even knew what was going on. And one of the statement of reasons was mental instability. Really, and this was on the statement. And so when they want to take your clearance, they have to issue these reasons. And while I'm crazy, I'm not mentally unstable. There's a difference, just saying. So look, you got to be crazy. No, I'm serious. No, you got to be crazy to be an intelligence officer and go on air assaults and go, shoot at people and get shot at. It's not something sane people do. Just saying.
But you're a stable,
that insanity benefits the government, so they let you do it. But the moment you do something that they don't like, it's like, oh, he's insane. It's like, really? Anyway, my point I'm trying to make is that any large bureaucracy which is threatened by individuals who have been essentially part of that bureaucracy. They will do anything they can to make sure that that person appears to be insane, somehow mentally deranged, or otherwise unstable. That's what they do. And so this is not new. But my concern, in context of this discussion, from what Chris just brought up, where the red flag issue is that you give those in power additional tools to be able to facilitate suppression of free speech or accountability. That's it. So the moment, I mean, this goes from the top level all the way down to the lowest level, down to the county level, the town level, all the way up to the federal bureaucracy. And Google is a huge bureaucracy now with huge amounts. I would argue, in many ways, Jay, these corporations have become even more powerful than the government because they're more willing to do things. There's a movie out there that I think helps illustrate some of this with George Clooney. Michael Clayton. The movie's Michael Clayton.
Oh, Michael Clayton, where he's firing.
So yeah, Michael Clayton. I highly recommend people go watch that because look, I don't like Clooney's politics, but I think he does a lot of movies which make you think, and this is one of those that makes you think because clearly there was a guy in this movie who's truly insane. He's the guy, So I think this kind of looks kind of at the spectrum of things we have to deal with. But I'm just saying, the corporations now, because of the money involved, billions, they're more than willing to, I think, do things which would be illegal. And if you give them a legal tool to go after people to enhance their ability to suppress free speech or dissent, then they're going to do it. And I think that's what we have to all be concerned about.
Another
By
thing
the way,
is,
I just want to make. Let me make this point. Because I actually have been to the same place that Tony was, and I can't give the details there, where the big power turned against me. But it's fascinating to see who your real friends are.
Oh, of course.
In those moments, you see people peel away because you become radioactive, and only very few people of high character will stand behind you.
And Pete and a lot of the other guys stood by me. I mean, Pete didn't know me at the time, but I think a lot of these guys behind the scenes were rooting for me. I know I had a lot of supporters who are quietly out there.
I knew you undercover, as it were.
Yeah, that's right. So,
by the way, if you're watching this and you enjoy if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to us. Hit that big red button. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Rumble, I believe it's a blue button, right? The subscribe button there. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, the audio podcast version, subscribe to us there or check us out. You can share our video or audio with your friends and social network. We'd really appreciate that, and it would really help us out. Thank you very much. And also thank you for viewing and or listening to this particular Thought to Action, because it's very important. The red flag laws sound extremely reasonable. You're hearing it in Congress. Well, red flag laws. Well, maybe we don't want to have people like Jeffrey Dahmer with a gun, or another Jack the Ripper running around, or H.H. Holmes or somebody like that carrying more weapons. But here is another problem. We have a regular series on Thought to Action called the Great Reset Roundtable. A lot of this centers around tracking us or monitoring us and setting up a universal social credit system, kind of like what China has. These red flag laws are another gateway into that. The potential abuses of this are akin to what we mentioned before about the government using the IRS as a weapon, or using the media as a weapon, just like what happened with Peter Navarro just recently. I mean, the guy could have just been maybe brought in or hauled in quietly, but no, there had to be a big spectacle over somebody who, like most of America, didn't respect the silly January 6th hearings. The fact is, these red flag laws can be used to put together or at least start a social credit system and cripple some people who are considered dangerous to the state.
Absolutely.
If I can throw in something there, because there's an interesting thought there. The social credit card, if you will, the social credit system is a mechanism by which, and clearly it's going to be the state, by which the state and certain elements of society, media, sort of the big tech slice of industry, essentially get to shape how the world views you individually, and depending upon how they feel about you. and it affects that impacts a very specific set of rights that we are guaranteed that the government is supposed to protect. If you look at what was being said in the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the 14th Amendment, are things about basic rights and the protection of those rights through something called due process. The whole point of the 14th Amendment, I guess it's the second clause, is due process. The government can't deprive you of rights and liberties unless it follows a hard set of rules. It can't do it. Not it sort of can't do it sometimes. It says very specifically it can't do it. It has to follow due process. And when we construct a set of laws or rules or regulations that allows a bureaucracy to reach out and essentially deprive you of your rights, you're violating the Constitution. That law that gives that bureaucracy the ability to deprive you of your rights through its own procedures, it's your due process rights. And so whether you feel good about this or bad about this, there is a greater issue here which says we must never let the government give a bureaucrat the ability to deprive you of your rights when you will never even know it. You won't even know the bureaucrat who did it. There will simply be a letter issued. It will be delivered to the local police or the local marshal's office or whoever, and you will be deprived of whatever particular rights they're upset at you about.
Right.
By the way, in Israel, they don't have a constitution. They only have a basic law. And for 48 hours, they don't have to report that they're interrogating you. What they'll do is they'll pick up a guy and keep him for 48 hours. They call him up, say, come into the police station, and they end in Hebrew, bring your pajamas. and for 48 hours, the guy just disappears off the grid. They don't even have to report it. And then they come to the magistrate after 48 hours. They ask for an extension. They almost always get it, so they get another 48, 72. They basically could take a guy out of the game for 2 to 5 days and you make his life a misery, And in America, we haven't had that much of that until now, but it's on to move that direction. Israel happens to be a pretty decent country, but that's not one of its best features, and we certainly don't want to.
Well, and there's a real danger when we have a government set up that does not have a written constitution. This is the same thing they say about England. Is that when you walk into the courtroom, the Constitution is literally whatever the judge says it is.
Well, this was recently, I think, very clearly illustrated in Canada.
Yeah.
Where Justin Trudeau basically said there is no right for you to use a gun to defend yourself. It's like, really?
Right.
Gee, last time I checked the Canadian military, I've worked with these guys in combat, and I've used them as aggressors in Michigan up in Camp Grayling. Last time I checked, they had guns. I mean, they were pretty good with them, as I recall, too. But somehow, if you're a citizen, you don't have that right. You can't use a gun to defend yourself. So I find that incongruous with the basic Western civilization principles.
Right.
And I don't know. Yeah, go ahead, Pete. I'm sorry.
I mean, he said very specifically, you do not have a right to defend yourself with a firearm. If you're attacked, you do not have a right to defend yourself with a firearm, which is fascinating because there isn't a government on the planet, not one, that says that the police are responsible for your specific defense.
Right. And so there's a lacuna there. There's a hole that it just falls into. You can't do it. The government can't. There's no police available. So what the hell happened? The guy with the gun wins. It's all.
The guy with the gun wins. The guy with the weapon wins.
So I just think it's insane that we're having this discussion right now, going back to the societal idea that you can be controlled. I think we did a previous thing on this. Chris just put out a couple days ago on the carbon footprint app. This is all being, look at this as a tapestry. The carbon footprint app would monitor literally, if you volunteer to put it on your phone or whatever, it'll be in there monitoring every time you go to the bathroom, make sure that those emissions of CO2 from any orifice are accounted for, right? I mean, everything you do, every little piece of carbon you generate, just saying, will be monitored, and that would be put into a larger system of information about you. And then anything you do that, or say politically, that may not sit well with the state, that may have an impact, and that is put with this other information. And before long, there's something called a mosaic. The powers that be will have a really good mosaic of who you are. And someone said the other day, I was talking about this, people always say, oh, well, if you had nothing to hide, why would you worry about it?
So wrong.
Because it's like, no, it's the other way around. It's like the government will presume that there's something wrong and they will act on that.
But
remember, this is the government's going to presume there's something wrong, and they're going to try to figure out something to get you on. Sorry,
but it's worse than that, because people will say that, well, if you have nothing to hide, if you haven't done anything wrong, you have nothing to hide. And of course, that would be true in a completely static society. But I'll just give you a simple example. Someone who uses a lot of toilet paper.
Okay.
And you wind up in a scenario like we did 2 years ago in this country. You're the guy who's using a lot of toilet paper.
Yeah.
Well, if you recall, there were people on social media ranting and raving about people who were taking too much toilet paper.
Sheryl Crow.
Yeah, they are annoying, though. Just for the record, that's annoying.
So you now have a situation where you might be the guy who, on your credit card, they can go back to the record, they can go back to your local grocer and find out you're going through 20 friggin' rolls of toilet paper a week. And it's
right.
You.
It's like this whole, I don't know if you guys have probably heard this in the media. Amy Schumer apparently is using up all the tampons in the nation. Did you hear about this?
I try to ignore Amy Schumer.
Just saying. I mean, I'm just telling you what I've been told. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm just simply the reporter here. So just saying.
You cannot ignore Amy Schumer because she's Schumer's linked to.
Do you know what the word Schumer means in German? Do you know?
I heard this. I forgot. I do know what
vagabond
means.
Vagabond.
There we go. That's
derelict.
So he has.
Just saying.
No. So he created a shtick, Charles Schumer, where he goes around to Jewish audiences and he tells them that his real name is Shomer, which is a Hebrew word for protector.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's Schumer, the word for vagabond and derelict.
Right, there we go.
Right. Derelict. Just like in what do you call it? What's that great movie? Zoolander. Derelict. Derelict.
There was something funny. You mentioned Trudeau just a little while ago.
You got to put these little like film shorts in when we mention these things. It'll really make the audience laugh even more. So
I have to add this in because I don't know if you remember this. It was some years ago. You mentioned Trudeau. Okay, there was a little quiz feature, one of those funny quizzes. It was called Trudeau or Zoolander. There was a quote, and you had to guess if either Justin Trudeau said it or Zoolander said it. I didn't do very well, by the way.
Here's my new look. Here's my Zoolander look.
But he is definitely PM Zoolander. So we have we have Commandant Lassard running America.
Yeah.
We have Zoolander running Canada. I don't know what's running the rest of the UN. But I will say, not the UN, the EU, same thing, I guess. But again mentioning Trudeau, you're talking about a very powerful entity that was elected by what, 33, 32, 34% of its own country.
Yeah.
One party, it's a multi-party system, so one party can actually gain control of the prime ministership and maybe build a little coalition along the way, but with 33, 34% voter approval and dictate to everybody else, you can't buy a gun. Canada says gun ownership is a privilege, not a right. Privilege meaning a select few, selected by the state, owns a gun. And that's
what this is all going. It's all very Soviet. As a summary explanation of what's going on. So,
well, actually, to be accurate, it's fascist. It's a true fascist.
Well,
it's the same thing.
The Soviet Union was fascist. Yeah, I mean, obviously it was racial fascism for Germany, economic fascism for the Soviet Union. But it's all, and I think the Democrat Party has managed to blend the two together very effectively. So, just saying.
But again,
It-
we're having an honest discussion about red flag laws. To most people, to the average American, they seem reasonable because on the surface, you can do something. You can say, well, at least there's a bipartisan effort. Well, again, bipartisan to some people means two Republicans on a committee of 9, but that's a different story for a different day. The fact is, people on the average who don't get their news from more than the headlines or social media are saying, it looks good. Red flag laws seem reasonable, but they don't understand the abuses. And this is why people need to see what we're talking about today.
But that's the thing,
Because
Chris. In the left and the mainstream media ain't going to explain it. They
no,
just aren't.
they
And I
won't.
think that's what, yeah. So that's why it's so important for
But
people to
neither
watch what
is
we're saying.
the media, supposedly maybe the centrist or right side media, because it's too difficult to explain to people. That's
Well,
another issue.
I tell you a way that you can explain it. If they, I should write an article about this now that you mention it. But this is a way to explain it. The Soviet Union, they would take people off the street and say it is for psychiatric
Exactly.
to get their mind right. And so once you have that power, again, without due process, you just pull people out of the crowd.
Right.
Well, this nation's done it too in the past year and a half, actually 3-4 years. From let's even say from 2018 onward, a 72-year-old man, Jerome Corsi, was pulled out in handcuffs, after the government tips off CNN, again, very early in the morning, tips off CNN to embarrass the guy, bring him out in handcuffs when
Right.
they really didn't have to. The idea is to shame people, embarrass people into thinking their way, or force people into thinking their way. Remember, wrong thinking is going to be a huge crime, and you'll be red flagged for wrong think. I might sound crazy. I might be red flagged for saying that, but decades down the road, people will be thanking us for this discussion.
Well, and that's the thing, Chris, because issues, as Pete opened up with, there were real issues, and I'm going to say this, and it may get us in trouble. I hope not, though. But there's reasons why certain categories of individuals with sexual dysphoria can't serve in the military. It's because there's mental issues, and I'm not saying that to be mean. I have no problem with people wanting to be who they are. It's just that, for example, if you decide to transition, which I just don't care. I don't think the state should pay for it, but if you want to do that, that's your issue. My issue is with the fact that if you go into combat, you have to have certain drugs with you. And from my own experience, there's going to be times when, if you're out in combat, actual combat, you're not going to have those drugs available, maybe weeks, maybe months. And what's going to happen to you? Are you going to be able to sustain a full physical readiness necessary to survive or help those around you? That's my issue. So the more you see the left pretend that medical science doesn't exist, the more you see that. To me, if you're somehow saying facts and medical science don't exist, that's a mental problem, because that then, I think, truly puts you in a category of potentially harming those in certain conditions. That's it. But now that's okay. No, that is accepted behavior by the left. But now political speech, if you say things they don't like, that's where they want to get you with these red flags. So
exactly.
it's that's what the danger is here. And again, for those in the community, in the alphabet community, we look. I have no issues. We have no issues with anything you do. As a matter of fact, buy a gun, get yourself armed to make sure that you can be left alone.
And protect others in your community too.
And protect others in your community. We are 100% for that. I'm just saying that there are conditions that relate to certain professions that would not be the best choice for someone who has to depend on drugs and have issues they're trying to work out in their personal lives. That's all I'm saying. So,
but again, you're dealing with a government and a media who likes to push surface issues. They deal in the superficial. Anything, if you peel the layers back, either they don't want to explain it, they're trying to hide it, or people will just ignore it. It's not fun to listen to or fun to watch anymore. But that's something that people really need to understand. We need to even if something sounds reasonable, peel the layers back and find out what potential abuses there could be. Hey, look, people in power right now are saying, hey, we can do this, this, and this to people without anybody knowing. But what happens? What happens the day the power flips? I don't know if they're even, I don't even know if they notice that, because there are going to be people on the other side who want to get even. I hate to put it that way. That's just life.
It's not even that, Chris. It doesn't even flip. One of the things that you'll notice if you peel back into history just a few decades, don't even need to go a few decades, just one decade, and look at any kind of essentially single party state. And invariably what you'll find is that very soon after becoming a clear single party state, the party starts to develop small pockets of essentially schismatics. And as they either gain or lose power, they are targeted by the rest of the state. And it happens routinely throughout history. It happens in every single party state that you'll get somebody who somehow splits off from the leadership. And the leadership either is strong enough to suppress them, or they become strong enough to suppress the leader. And what happens is, if you can suppress that little sect, you will do it by identifying something, the shoes they wear, the way they cut their hair, and you will make it illegal. You'll make it some sort of mark that says, you know, that SOB Chris, he combs his hair straight back, and only Nazis comb their hair straight back.
Yeah. I've
You know,
seen that.
and we'll go after him. We'll go after him in social media. We'll go after him in the movies. We'll go after him in the papers. And it happens routinely. And so anybody out there who thinks that, well, I'm on the side of, take your pick, and therefore I'm safe for the rest of all time, you're kidding yourself.
I remember, and no matter what race or ethnicity you are, don't symbolize that something's okay with the universal okay sign.
Right.
No.
Apparently.
Right. Hey, the government's philosophy, if you can't string them up with piano wire, red flag them. That's what it's going to be soon. All right. Maybe a little extreme, but you know where I'm going.
Like I said, Soviet Union, they did that regularly.
Right.
Yeah. The war on objective facts continues. And I think the danger of the lack of debate and discussion of the red flag issue is emblematic of that. There's a rush of emotion to do something, and that emotion is captured in the wacky agreements that the left and right are trying to make right now to do something. Well, we got to do something. And at least from what I've seen so far, it looks like the legislation is going to be a framework rather than a set of laws which require it, which is not as bad as it could be. They're not going to go after magazines this time, I don't think, or the assault weapons. Assault weapons just don't exist. Just saying, except for the Sturmgewehr, STG 44, but you know nobody has those. Anyway, so but I think the danger here is that they're going to throw a lot of money downrange, which will be mostly taken advantage of by blue states to inflict on their citizens red flag laws. I think there's going to be more resistance in I'm sorry, blue states. Yeah, red states are going to resist, I think. But it's still a danger. Anytime you throw money at something's going to happen. And even the red states are going to be tempted to take that money. The federal, it's another example, we should have another discussion on the federal government trying to bribe states, which I still don't think is a legal thing to do, but just saying. So that's
But it's been done. It has been done.
And always been done.
Yes.
So if the blue states make the red flag and we throw up a white flag, then we got a new version of the red, white, and blue.
That's right. That's true. That's a good observation. Just in time for the 4th of July.
Thank you for being with us for this edition of Thought to Action presented by the Herb London Center for Policy Research. Please remember to hit that like button. Feel free to comment on our discussion. We appreciate your thoughts. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our Thought to Action channel and pound the big red bell for updates on future shows. That's if you're on YouTube. Find out more about the London Center on our website, londoncenter.org. And if you would like to help us continue to create discussions and programming like this, please join us on Patreon, patreon.com/thought-to-action. You can enjoy sneak previews, special exclusive content, full live streams after the live streams are done, and our Ask Us Anything sessions. Also, you can help us greatly by sharing this video with your friends, colleagues, and social networks. Pick up some of our cool merch at the Thought to Action Teespring store. The link is in our description. And for our panel at the Herb London Center for Policy Research, I'm Chris Cordani. Thank you. Stay informed and make your day a great one.